What's up, everyone? Welcome to the new DraftKings simulation video. This is a video I'll be recording Monday through Friday, walking through using our Sims tool on DraftKings, taking a look at how things are shaping up early in the day. Obviously, keep in mind that things are going to change as we get lineups released, ownership updates, projection changes, all of that. But it'll give us a good look early in the day and give us a chance to sort of walk through and see what's showing up in the Sims tool, what's showing up as the best plays on DraftKings right now. We talk a lot on shows and in content about projections, ownership, top stack tool, top pitchers tool, all of that. The Sims tool essentially is going to give us a way to just put all of that stuff together and see what's coming up as the best plays on a given slate. So I've built 1,000 lineups in Fantasy Cruncher. You can enter up to 2,000 in the Sims tool, as you see here. I built 1,000 lineups. They're all 5-man stacks. I didn't put in any secondary stacks for the purposes of this video, but that is going to give us a decent proxy for how things are shaping up early on in the day. So I've already run the simulation. I already uploaded the lineups, ran the simulation. So here you're seeing the top lineups that were built, and they're sorted right now by simulated ROI. So sort of just looking through these lineups, these top lineups, and seeing what's showing up. James Paxton, Merrill Kelly, two of the better pitching options on the slate. That's as expected. Looks like we are getting a 5-man Rockies stack going up against Brandon Williamson in Cincinnati, one of the weaker pitchers on the slate. We're getting one-offs where Andrew Vaughn, very good one-off tonight for the White Sox. A lot of power for him in a good home run spot against Andrew Heaney. Starling Marte, tough matchup, but obviously a high upside hitter. Matt McLain, one of the top shortstop options on the other side of the Rockies game, taking on Austin Gomber. Here you have Paxton and Lopez, again, two of the top pitchers. Another Rockies stack, Paxton Burns with another Rockies stack. So the Rockies are clearly showing up as one of the better teams. If you go to exposures here, or first, so we're sorted by simulated ROI right now. We can use the quick favorite button. If you're playing 20 lineups, you can grab the top 20. We're going to grab the top 150 right now. Check out the exposures first on a player level. So we have James Paxton coming in about 53%. So even though he is one of the more popular pitchers on tonight's slate, he is still showing up as a very good play. Andrew Heaney, 35% as the next highest owned pitcher. He's a little bit cheaper, so he does stand out. From a roster construction standpoint, you have a lot of interchangeable pieces with Paxton, Hunter Brown, Corbin Burns, Merrill Kelly. There's Justin Verlander. There's several guys in that range that look very similar. Heaney's sort of in his own price range. It is a scary matchup for him, but where you're not getting to the White Sox, he does make a lot of sense as an SP2. So he's showing up here as the second most exposed pitcher. Then we start getting to some bats. You see a lot of Cincinnati coming in. Fernando Tatis one-off. Obviously, he's fantastic. Pablo Lopez, 20% ownership as your next pitcher up. So you can see a lot of Cincinnati here. Then we start getting the Chicago bats mixed in. Jake Berger, Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn's right here. Those are all really good one-offs. Also relatively inexpensive. They're going up against Heaney. So you can actually see that there's going to be a large percentage of your lineups where you have at least one of Chicago bat or Andrew Heaney. And that makes a lot of sense when you have a pitcher like Heaney that gets strikeouts, is cheap, but also gives up a lot of home runs. It makes sense to be on one side of that in a lot of your lineups. Max Scherzer coming in here around 17%. That is a bit lower than his projected ownership, but again, we're getting more of Paxton, more of Heaney than their projected ownerships. If you sort by or look at it in terms of stacks, again, I didn't make any secondary stack requirements in Fantasy Cruncher, but you're getting Cincinnati coming in at the top. They do have the highest implied run total on the slate. They look really good. The White Sox coming in second, Colorado, Minnesota, who has a tough matchup against Paxton, but they do also have a lot of upside thanks to some cheap prices. Again, this is a spot where I think it makes a lot of sense to have a high percentage of Minnesota in your non-Paxton lineups. You have a great strikeout pitcher at a reasonable price tag facing a team that does have a lot of power at very cheap price tags. There's a very high percentage of the time that one of those two sides is going to end up being necessary in tournaments. So you are seeing those stacks come in at the top. If you look by player ROI, not surprising, you're seeing all of these Rockies show up here. That's why you had those Colorado teams at the top. They're sort of middle of the pack in terms of top stack percentage, but this is essentially telling you that they're giving you a very good combination of projection, value, and relatively low ownership. Everything combined, they are showing up as some of the best plays on the slate. Now, one other thing you can do, and you can sort of adjust for contest type, this is simulated ROI, so it's sort of balancing out you're going to get some pretty chalky plays in there as long as they are, actually considered good chalk. They're going to show up. If maybe in those larger field tournaments, you could make a case for just going by win percentage. If you do that, what you're going to see happen, so we can unfavorite and then refavorite the top 150. What you're going to see happen if you sort by win percentage is you're going to get you're still getting to Cincinnati, but you're getting a lot less. Colorado gets bumped up a little bit. And then you start getting into some more contrarian teams. San Diego, Houston, the White Sox get pushed down because they are pretty popular. Arizona gets pushed up. Minnesota goes down a little bit. So you can sort of see how if you're just focusing on getting first place, then you are going to get less exposure going to the most popular stacks. You're going to get ones that are a little bit weaker, but still good being pushed up. Similarly, if you look at the player exposure tab, Paxton's ownership comes down slightly, so does Heaney's. But what really stands out is that instead of getting a bunch of reds around 30%, they're down to around 20%. Ellie De La Cruz, the only hitter even approaching 30% now is Fernando Tatis at 27%. Again, that is because of how we sorted it. It's spreading things out more now. It makes sense when you think about it in terms of, the Reds collectively are in a lot of the best lineups. They're in a lot of the lineups that are making money, but they're also competing with each other for first place. So you are spreading things out a bit, which, in those largest field tournaments can make sense. In smaller field stuff, I would certainly lean more towards lineups that are, have higher cash equity in addition to making in addition to having win equity, which is essentially what the simulated ROI is showing you. Top 10 percentage can sort of give you a nice mix between win and simulated ROI because it is still singling out lineups that are finishing at the very, very top, but obviously not quite as specifically as finishing in exactly first place. So if we sort by that, go over to exposures, now you're back to 25% for Cincinnati, 16 for Colorado, 16 for the White Sox, 11 for Minnesota. A lot more in line with what you're seeing when you sort by sim ROI. Same goes for exposures. Paxton and Heaney at the top, Newman, Steer, De La Cruz, all in that basically 25 to 30% range. Tatis still showing up a lot. So you can see that there's different ways you could sort these. I think that there's different rationale that you could use. Generally, I'm using simulated ROI, but you can make a case for other ones as well. I don't really have a good use case for cash percentage. I guess in your smallest field stuff, that could certainly be playable, but I think I'd still probably go top 10%. But you can see how, the adjustments that makes, and it does allow you to sort of customize for exactly what size field you're playing. So I think that's important to point out. But again, to recap, you're just seeing a lot of Cincinnati show up. You're seeing the White Sox coming in quite a bit. They look good, cheap price tags, high upside. Colorado appears to be the relatively contrarian team that we're getting to right now. And then Heaney, the relatively contrarian pitcher that we're getting to. No problems with either of those. Really high upside spot for the Rockies in Cincinnati against a very bad Brandon Williamson. High upside spot for Heaney against the White Sox. We know he comes with plenty of strikeout stuff. One other thing that I'll note, and it's just something that makes me confident when I see it, makes me confident in my results when I see it. On normal size slates, and there are always going to be exceptions, smaller slates, spots where one individual hitter just looks exceptional. But whenever I run a simulation and then I look at player exposures, when my top hitters are just like sort of congregating right around 30% and then it's trickling down, that makes me really confident in the results. Because of the volatility in baseball, you should typically, again, there's going to be exceptions based on a variety of things, but you should typically be seeing your best hitting plays still coming in around like 30% or so, just because they still are going to fail so often. So that is one thing that I really like the simulation tool for. You do frequently see that. And it's something that I've had trouble in the past. And I think a lot of people have had trouble in the past sort of balancing out, okay, well, I think this is a great hitter play, but I'm playing a lot of lineups, is getting to 50%, 60% too much? Obviously the answer is it depends, but this tool is going to do a much better job of answering that question for you than a lot of things that have been available in the past, sort of manually trying to adjust things for top stack percentage, projection, ownership, all of that. So that's something that looks, really good. And it's something I do like to check on our normal size slates because it can tell you if something is potentially sort of wonky. Maybe there's something in the data that's sort of messed up. If you see on a normal size slate, some hitter coming in at 70% owned across 150 lineups. But typically you're going to see them sort of cap out around 30% naturally, which is a good thing and typically is going to make me feel more confident. So again, right now, the Reds showing up as good chalk, essentially. The White Sox showing up as pretty good chalk. Vaughn, Berger, Robert in particular, and the Rockies showing up as our relatively contrarian stack. As far as pitching goes, Paxton showing up as very good chalk, and then Andrew Heaney looking like a good contrarian play. So that's all I have for this video. We're going to do this every day, Monday through Friday, just walk through some early looks at what is showing up in the DraftKings simulation. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you keep checking it out. Thanks for sticking around and watching the video.